All right, so here we are again for the working its way towards famous ACIM talks with Reverend Jim, and Monday nights from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. We've sent out the agenda to everyone as usual, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. And tonight, again, the invitation is there. We've got like a time spot for things you want to contribute. Like I've been playing some music. Send me some music you like. And tonight I have a reading. Uh, Send me readings you like, but mine tonight is from one of my all-time favorite spiritual teachers, and his name is Paramahansa Yogananda.
Mm-hmm.
Do you all know about Parama? Okay, he came
Yep.
to he came to my attention through his book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And I never do well with these screens and that, but see, I've read this book like at least 5 times or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so fallen apart that when I took it out to read it to you tonight, it's fallen apart yet again. So I taped up the back part and taped up the front part so I could read the part I wanted to read. So I hope this works out. It's taken from, well, it's on the agenda, page 166 in Autobiography of a Yogi. And the name of this chapter is An Experience in Cosmic Consciousness. I'll just pick up some place where I think you can grasp what this is about, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Master spoke caressingly, comfortingly. His calm gaze was unfathomable. Your heart's desires shall be fulfilled, he said. Sri Yukteswar seldom indulged in riddles. I was bewildered. So he struck me gently on the chest above the heart. My body became immovably rooted. Breath was drawn out of my lungs as if by some huge magnet. Soul and mind instantly lost their physical bondage and streamed out like a fluid piercing the light from my every pore. The flesh was as though dead. Yet in my intense awareness, I knew that never before had I been fully alive. My sense of identity was no longer narrowly confined to a body, but embraced the circumambient atoms. People on distant streets seemed to be moving gently over my remote periphery. The roots of plants and trees appeared through a dim transparency of the soil. I discerned the inward flow of their sap. The whole vicinity lay bare before me. My ordinary frontal vision was now changed to a vast spherical sight, simultaneously all perceptive. Through the back of my head, I saw men strolling far down Ray Gott Lane. and noticed also a white cow that was leisurely approaching. And when she approached the open ashram gate, I observed her as though with my two physical eyes. After she passed behind the brick wall of the courtyard, I saw her clearly still. All objects within my panoramic gaze trembled and vibrated like quick motion pictures. My body, masters, and the pillared courtyard, the furniture and floor, the trees and sunshine occasionally became violently agitated until all melted into a luminescent sea, even as sugar crystals thrown into a glass of water dissolve after being shaken. The unifying light alternated with materializations of form, the metamorphoses revealing the law of cause and effect in creation. An oceanic joy broke upon the calm, endless shores of my soul. The Spirit of God, I realized, is exhaustive. I realized is exhaustless bliss. His body is countless tissues of light. Speaking of God, right? You with me? A swelling glory within me began to envelop towns, continents, the earth, solar and stellar systems, tenuous nebulae, multiple nebulae, or what is that? Okay. And floating universes. The entire cosmos, gently luminous, like a city seen afar at night, it glimmered with the infinitude of my being. The dazzling light behind the sharply etched global outlines faded slightly at the farthest edges. There, I saw a mellow radiance ever undiminished. It was indescribably subtle. The planetary pictures were formed of a grosser light. The defined dispersion of rays poured from an eternal source, blazing into galaxies, transfigured with ineffable auras. Again and again, I saw the creative beings condense into constellations, then resolve into sheets of transparent flame. By rhythmic reversion, sextillion worlds passed into diaphanous luster. Then fire became firmament. I cognized the center of the Empyrean. I looked that up, Empyrean. It means relationship to heaven or sky. At any rate, I cognized the center of the Empyrean as a point of intuitive perception in my heart. Irradiating splendor issued from my nucleus to every part of the universal structure. Blissful Amrita, nectar of immortality, pulsated through me with a quick silver-like fluidity. The creative voice of God, I heard something, The creative voice of God I heard resounding as Om, the vibrations of the cosmic motor. Suddenly, the breath returned to my lungs with a disappointment almost unbearable. I realized that my infinite immensity was lost. Once more, I was limited to the humiliating cage of a body, not easily accommodated to spirit. Like a prodigal child, I had run away from my macrocosmic home and had imprisoned myself in a narrow microcosm. My guru was standing motionless before me. I started to prostrate myself at his holy feet in gratitude for having bestowed on me the experience and cosmic consciousness that I had so passionately sought. He held me upright and said quietly, "You must not get overdrunk with ecstasy. Much yet remains for you in the world. Come on, let's sweep the balcony floor, then we will walk by the Ganges." What'd you think? Did you understand any of it? In short, this was the first time Yogananda, I forget his name before he changed it when he became a yogi, but that was his first experience that his mentor gave him of leaving the body and what that was like. I remember when I read The Disappearance of the Universe, maybe we talked about this, and Gary, y'all know this book?
Yeah.
And Gary asked Persa what this bliss was like. And Persa said something like, think of the biggest orgasm you've ever had or could imagine. And she says, you got that in mind, Gary? Gary says, okay. She says, now imagine it never stops. That's what this bliss is like. And this guy seemed really impressed with the experience. What do you think?
I think it's amazing that his guru could give him that experience.
Yeah. And he sure didn't want to come back. He wasn't happy being back in his body.
Yeah. You ever get into meditation, and when you come out of it, it does feel kind of like a letdown. It's like a zone or a gear, a super gear you get into for a little while. I'm not sure I've had experiences as Yogananda described, but I'm working on it, right?
Mhm.
And he had Sri Yukteswar. Oh God, at any rate, don't get me started on that. But before we leave it, do you have any comments about it? Well, I do. I wanted to ask you about the last part. Okay, he's so disappointed, right, at coming down from that thing. But do you remember the advice his guru gave him after the experience?
You still have to be in this world for a while.
Yeah, Do not get over drunk with ecstasy. Much yet remains for you in the world.
Mm.
Chop wood, carry water.
Mm-hmm.
You're the light of the world. You glimpsed it, but you can't have it until all of you does. Right now, you call them everyone. Comment. No, I thought I heard somebody say something. So once again, I'm often using the vernacular of metaphors. So, like, here's Yogananda, and then I kind of saw the same thing in the disappearance of the universe. And then that reminded me of Sadhguru, who says, you can visualize these mangoes. They're beautiful, they're big, they're sweet, they're perfect. But if you want them, you can't think mangoes. If you want mangoes, you have to think soil, nutrients, sunlight, climate. None of those things look like a mango. In Hinduism, you'll often see the lotus flower. And the lotus flower is their symbol because it grows, is so beautiful, but it grows out of filth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the two-part things that, okay, Pat's here. It's kind of like theory and application. The idea and the work, the goal and the process. Do you see how words get in the way? Because people think the words you use make something different, but they're all collapsible fundamentally into things like light or darkness, heaven or hell, good or evil, right? And they can all be reduced to those kinds of choices. I choose this goal. Here's what I need to do for it to happen. Sweep the balcony, stop thinking so far ahead, do what's in front of you today, right? So that's my message to get us started. What do you think?
Lots to ponder. And then we have to walk the Ganges.
Yeah, no, okay. Just because you see the plan, it'll only work if you do what?
Chop
12
wood,
steppers.
carry water.
Okay,
Work it.
now move to the 12 steppers.
Work it.
It only works
If
you
you
work
work it,
if you work it.
you're worth it.
Do you see the relationship to this one principle that's in so many different forms?
Yeah, definitely.
It's just that as smart as you guys are getting to be, you can see through form to content. We don't get diverted as much by the form of something. We can collapse it and see its essence, you see.
Mm.
All
It
right.
does still amaze me that his guru could give him this experience of
Well,
ecstasy.
his guru, God, I wish I could think of it, but there's a lineage of gurus. His guru had a guru,
Right.
had another guru, and the guru before that was like the top of the line. I can't even think of his name. But whenever you saw him, it was like he was hundreds of years old, but he always looked like a 20-year-old male. I
And
can't think of his name in Hindu. Yes.
Yogananda must have been ready.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
so
But
it's,
still,
I know,
but
I
how
know.
does someone give you that experience?
Well,
Well, maybe
go
he
ahead.
gives him the opportunity for it because he was ready. Or I
Well,
don't know.
this guy had been training him for a long time.
I know. I realize that. It's just
So,
the part that amazes me still.
oh yeah, and
Yeah.
that it can happen. Like,
Right. Right.
what does it say? When you're ready, it just takes a little thump for the rest of it to happen because you were so ready. So if we look at like lesson 20 in the course, it says, I am determined to see.
Mm,
And then 27, it says, above all else, I am determined to see.
mm.
Now we're getting into the gear where stuff can really happen. In the Bible, it says, who having found his treasure would not give up everything to possess it? Y'all ever, I don't know any Bible folks in here today, but
it's all like osmosis. You can't get what your guru has until you're at the level where it can flow back and forth easily. It
Mhm.
um it's that it's that acknowledgement of the oneness so that you can exchange from one another. And the only I can only give you an example of that is I grew up on a little farm. And it got to the point when my father could no longer, he was in a nursing home, could no longer take care of his one last beef cow that he had. And so the cow had to go to be slaughtered. And I was there when they were driving out. All I could see was his eye. And when his eye touched my eye, there was a connection that was beyond whatever was beyond, and there was a communication. And that, I believe, is what happens is you get to that point where there is that where you both are in the oneness, where you both are in that place where there's that easy flow back and forth. And I think that's something, and I think that's what we're striving for. That's what we're here for, is to learn to be able to be in that place where the communication can occur without words.
Well, where we become one.
Yes, yes,
And if the master could do it, then so could.
yes. And I've also had that happened with different animals, but I was by my pond and I was putting up a fence, but there was a snake. So what I was doing was dropping the rock so there would be vibration on the ground so the snake would go away. And as the snake was going away, it turned around and looked at me, and like that there was that connection again of okay. And it was, and it's it's a communication that you have without words.
so
That's pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
many people do you know that would observe a snake look at them? Even if it occur, do you see that there are kind of various levels, aren't there?
Mm-hmm.
And some of us come endowed to easily operate It happens at an early age where we notice it. And yet for others, it doesn't happen till they're senior citizens. All the stuff. They notice it. Notice that it's not new, or right?
Mhm.
But it's a realization.
Mhm.
And Kathleen, you've already had this for a long time. How often were you able to speak of it when you were a little girl or a teenager? Or
Well, it's there, that's the woo-woo factor. You don't share that with many people because they're going to think you're nuts.
Mhm.
No,
high school.
or being able to sit on a rock on my property and there's a communication with the rock. It's like you don't tell many people because they'll look at you.
Out of this world, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah, and yet, but see, here's the thing. We think we're alone, but how many people are having these experiences,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
they're not in a trusting enough situation to even bring it up?
Right.
Right. And it does, at this point in time in my life, if I share what I share, and if you look at me weird, that's your problem, not
Yeah.
mine. But this is
Yeah.
my experience. This is this is the zone that I reside in, and I'm no longer denying it.
And the others call us old and cantankerous because we've finally learned we don't have to do what everybody else does.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've grown up enough to where we think for ourselves. We're not able to be led like sheep. I'm not against the leaders unless they're trying to take me someplace that doesn't make sense to me.
Mhm.
And now I speak up about it.
Uh-huh.
Old dude. Joan, are you still there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. I got to get better at operating my screen so I can see you. Just think one day when we have 50, 60 people here, what a screen manager I'll have to become then. But in the meantime,
That's when you get an assistant.
I'm gonna just go with the ones I've been given, right? Stop asking so many questions. Go with the flow. Row, row, row your boat. How is that again? You're supposed to do it? Row
Gently down the
Gently.
stream,
yeah, and
merrily,
Jesus
merrily, merrily.
says a sense of leisure is essential. But when I was young, it was always, what's the next thing? I gotta. Isn't it funny how we've changed? Anyhow, I don't want to overdo it, but doesn't take much to get us talking, does it? So let's get back to some of our let's talk topics. And we're still, well, I think we're almost done with the preface to the FIP version. And I'm showing that we left off page Roman numeral 12. I guess it's the third paragraph. Does that make sense to you, or you want to
Yep.
start?
Yes.
Pretty good.
I don't
Yeah.
know where you are, and I didn't get a
Oh, all right.
thing.
Do you have the preface, Pat? Page
Here.
Roman numeral 12.
Yeah. Yeah.
The paragraphs aren't numbered. Just count down to the third one. You there?
Yep, I think so. Yep,
Perception.
Yeah.
is
It's a function.
I got it.
All right, so I have Kathleen first, Pat second, Dee third, Joan fourth, and I'll be fifth. So if that's all right, let's get into it here.
Okay. Perception is a function of the body and therefore represents a limit on awareness. Perception sees through the body's eyes and hears through the body's ears. It evokes the limited responses which the body makes. The body appears to be largely self-motivated and independent, yet it actually responds only to the intentions of the mind. If the mind wants to use it for attack in any form, it becomes prey to sickness, age, and decay. If the mind accepts the Holy Spirit's purpose for it instead, it becomes a useful way of communicating with others, invulnerable as long as it is needed, and to be gently laid by when its use is over. Of itself, it is neutral, as is everything in the world of perception. Whether it is used for the goal of the ego or the Holy Spirit depends entirely on what the mind wants.
Okay, just a couple of things. Maybe we need to mute. I'm hearing feedback. Are you? We were hearing it a little
Yeah,
bit.
a little bit.
So try muting if you're not speaking. And the other thing, to give this a reminder or a perspective, we're finishing up the third part of the preface, what it says. And it's this section that Helen says was written through inner dictation. The first two sections was kind of Helen doing an overview and the content and how many pages in each section and that. But in terms of what it says, she is writing or scribing in this section. So what is Jesus saying here? Perception is a function of the body as opposed to what?
The mind.
Mind.
Yeah.
So if we set it up algebraically, it would say perception is equal to the body as X is equal to knowledge. Do you see me messing with you, Professor?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
So he goes on to say then that perception, okay, being a function of a limited apparatus called the body, you with me,
Mm-hmm.
is going to be limited. The first thing Yogananda said when he had his cosmic consciousness experience is all of a sudden, well, I forget how he phrased it. He said, all of a sudden I left my body. That's the first requirement in order to see things from a bigger perception. If you could leave your body, would you be able to be involved with things like universes and nebulae and planets? And is that possible?
Well, the people who do astral projection think so.
Yeah.
Sadhguru says it happened to him on Charmony Hill when he was about 15.
Hmm.
And his description is quite similar. I think Yogananda had a lot more flourishes to his, but Sadhguru says, all of a sudden I was a part of everything.
Mm.
But it always starts with, I left my body.
Yeah, good point.
It's your essence. It's your essence that travels. It's your and it doesn't have to be, this is another woo-woo thing. But I was in a sometimes this happens to me. If you're like, I can see the news and I can see the war zone, and all of a sudden I leave my body and I'm in the war zone, and I'm walking through the war zone and I'm giving out blessings. I'm not seeing people, but I'm walking through, and my energy and my essence is giving a blessing.
It's beautiful.
Wow, that's
And
cool.
that and that's even when I talk about it, my whole body react to it. Okay, this is but it's learning to accept that this is who I am, and this is what I do, and I just have to learn to breathe.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's woo-woo. I think it's more real than this supposed.
Oh, yeah, but
reality.
in the real world, it's woo-woo.
So I was going to comment on one of the words you used when you first started about what happens when you travel outside your body.
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed you don't travel outside your body?
Yeah.
There's no plane you caught or some
No.
interval. Have you ever noticed when you're dreaming, you never travel? It's just like in one frame, I'm here and I don't know what the hell happened, but all of a sudden I'm on the beach in LA.
And that's what it's like.
Or I'm on top of Everest. Notice there was no time-space interval.
No, there isn't. You're just
But I know what you meant by travel. And yet, if we focus on that word even a little bit, that's not the experience. You didn't even make reservations or
no.
get a rent-a-car. How are we doing here? There's a lot being said in this paragraph. Anything else grabbing you?
Well, I like the last sentence where it reminds me that whether it's used for goals of the ego or for the Holy Spirit depends entirely on what the mind wants.
Right.
So we get what we want.
Right.
Yeah.
And the same point, a few sentences above that, it says, the body appears to be largely self-motivated and independent, yet it actually responds only to the intentions of the mind.
And I've been grappling with that because I have a lot of hip pain that goes on, and sometimes when I'm walking, I have the pain, and I have to remind myself, because I can get so wrapped up in that's all my world is, and so I sometimes.
Wait, you mean the pain hurts so much?
Oh yeah, that for when I'm walking, and then I have to say to myself, well, Kathleen, you have a choice here. You can stay in this vibration, or you can rise up. You can rise up to a higher vibration. And I have to keep I have to keep reminding myself to practice doing that, because it's
Yeah. Turn
because
with
it can
me.
be all engulfing.
Take a look in the workbook at lesson 190. Read the title of that lesson, Kathleen. Read it to everybody.
Sure.
Lesson 190.
Okay. I choose the joy of God instead of pain. Oh, that would be a good thing to say.
You just said it.
I know.
That's what made me think of it.
Yeah. That in another way of saying it. Yeah, it's like it's.
So it sounds like you're not the only one that thinks that's doable. And so when the more the pain gets intense, it serves as a reminder to you as to what your solution might be. It's a choice
Right.
where you want to place your light, your focus, your attention, your awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Often think of my mind now as like this big searchlight, and that I can decide where I want to point it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm.
also, the reason that it makes the decision so important that I choose where I want to put it is because wherever I put that light, I activate it. I give it life. So if I'm dwelling on negative things, I'm making them start happening. And I've learned, don't do that.
Mm,
You've taken the course in mind training.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to think about anything you don't want to consider.
Mm, good
And
point.
also learning what garbage is. Why would I want to put my light on that and exacerbate garbage?
Mm-hmm.
It becomes an easy common sense choice. And yet, I'm glad we're on ACIM Talks. If I'm talking too much, stop me. One of my other spiritual gurus on YouTube, I can't even say his name, Vera something, they all end in Ananda. But he says, I want you to think of dealing with the mind as though you're sitting on top of an elephant trying to drive an elephant. You can't beat it. You can't control it, but you can train it on your behalf. You can teach it, like, how you're on a horse and you've got the bridle and you're trying to manage this big animal. It's kind of like that, only this animal's like an elephant and you're this little thing, but still, if you use your creativity, use the power of your mind, you can train it. Your mind becomes trainable. You know the experience? When I just first started meditating, it was chatter, 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 chatter. And I've noticed over the years, I have very little chatter when I go into meditation anymore. I settle down a lot more easily. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
You know, everybody talks about meditation. Do y'all do it? I mean, no offense if you don't, but I'm just wondering.
I don't do it on a regular basis, and I'm different from everyone else. How I am training myself to meditate is to meditate in the present moment.
Absolutely.
I don't have to leave my body. I don't have to go anywhere. Therefore, I can meditate while I'm driving the car.
That's what I'm working on.
Yeah, and I can be open to hear what I need to hear in those places.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
We
and,
had go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm
and
interrupting.
for me, I have great difficulty sitting in the silence, and that's something that I need to work through,
Ah,
because there's a big issue there. And I will tap dance as fast as I can not to be in the silence. I can multitask 10 things just so I don't have to be in that one place. And I know that's related to the stories that my mind has made up about my abuse. And it's about letting go of that story and saying, no, I catch myself and I go, no, this story is not right.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's something you're still holding on to,
Mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
I applaud you for recognizing that and also for understanding that a sense of leisure is essential. I remember last week you related, or was it Tuesday night, about some of the psychotherapists that you've experienced over the years. And the one that was really cool was the one that brought up the abuse issues and then let it go for a year. He
Yep.
knew he hit the spot, but lovingly allowed you to get ready to deal with it.
Yeah.
That's what love would do. I applaud you for recognizing that, right? So it's all working out in its own sweet way, in its
Yeah.
own sweet time. No need to panic because everything, despite what you might think of it, is always perfect.
Yeah.
Go with that. I'm going with it. What choice do I have? Fight it? Fight it? At any rate. Shall we read another before we close?
Yep, I think it's my turn.
All right, Pat.
The opposite of seeing through the body's eyes is the vision of Christ, which reflects strength rather than
Hey,
weakness.
I've got a confession to make. I was really scared.
You still there?
I'm still here. Should I start over? Yeah.
All right, go right ahead.
The opposite of seeing through the body's eyes is the vision of Christ, which reflects strength rather than weakness, unity rather than separation, and love rather than fear. The opposite of hearing through the body's ears is communication through the voice for God, the Holy Spirit, which abides in each of us. His voice seems distant and difficult to hear because the ego, which speaks for the little separated self, seems to be much louder. This is actually reversed. The Holy Spirit speaks with unmistakable clarity and overwhelming appeal. No one who does not choose to identify with the body could possibly be deaf to his messages of release and hope, nor could he fail to accept joyously the vision of Christ in glad exchange for his miserable picture of himself.
Comments from you guys? I told you the story of how I've been in this apartment for 14 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how that happened. And I got out of the car and the voice said, move here. When I read about the unspeakable clarity,
That was it.
hey, I know it when I hear it. I can't always explain it, but I'll turn on a dime when that voice comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Lesson 49 says, God's voice speaks to me all through the day. It's extremely clear the interference is my willingness to hear it. So don't act like it's a soft voice, right? Although that may be a convenient out. Oh, gee, really? Well, my ego, the devil told me to do it. Don't act like that's an excuse. I'm learning. Comments? Who's next?
I am.
All right, Dee.
Christ's vision is the Holy Spirit's gift, God's alternative to the illusion of separation and to the belief in the reality of sin, guilt, and death. It is the one correction for all errors of perception, the reconciliation of the seeming opposites on which this world is based. Its kindly light shows all things from another point of view, reflecting the thought system that arises from knowledge and making return to God not only possible, but inevitable. What was regarded as injustices done to one by someone else now becomes a call for help and for union. Sin, sickness, and attack are seen as misrepresentations, as misperceptions, which are misrepresentations too, calling for remedy through gentleness and love.
So,
Defenses are laid
yes, go ahead, dear.
Defenses are laid down because where there is no attack, there is no need for them. Our brothers' needs become our own because they are taking the journey with us as we go to God. Without us, they would lose their way. Without them, we could never find our way.
What say ye? Stuff you already knew, but here it is again being repeated.
Well, I love the reminder of what was regarded as injustices done to one by someone else now becomes a call for help and for union.
Mhm.
Just to see everything as either love or a call for love. Either way, respond with love. That's
So
huge.
that's all that's going on here, right? The course
Yeah.
says are love and calls for love. Any other comments here?
The sentence that says defenses are laid down because where there is no attack, there is no need for them.
Mm.
And I'm thinking it might be an attack, but I don't take it that way. So it's to me,
Wait. Why don't tell me again why you don't take it that way?
like it really, I mean, you can have two people and one person could take it as an attack and another person not. So it's again our perception.
Is
Are
there
we being
someone
attacked?
that knows it isn't? Like you?
Mm.
Yeah, like you can either take it as an attack or not take it as
Well,
an
why
attack.
would you take it as an attack ever? What would be the
Well, if you're
exception
with your
to an illusion?
if you're with your ego, you would most likely take it as an attack.
Well, of course. So if I say, well, maybe it was an attack, the only way it could even appear to be is if I'm in my ego.
Mhm. Yes.
And the sentence before that one says it too. Sin, sickness, and attack are seen as misperceptions, calling for remedy through gentleness and love. So if I do that first, then I know that there's no attack.
Gentleness and love to whom?
Everybody, whoever I think is
Including-
attacking me and myself.
Okay, be
Yeah.
gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I would never see it as attack if I do that part.
And if
True.
you still do, even though you recognizing, that's not quite right, don't let the ego make you feel guilty that you messed up once. A sense of leisure is essential to this entire process. What a joyous process, because you do this one with ease.
Yeah.
You don't have to work at this.
And when we do, the rest works. It just works.
But when you work on it, it doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
Surrender.
Surrender to win.
Row your boat with a sense of leisure. Are we on the theme here tonight, right?
Like
Mhm.
it.
Have to
Yep.
relax into this, and that's why it's so difficult and fearful for a lot of people. But once you start really doing it seriously, you start getting benefits that it's hard to explain to people
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
eyes haven't been open, whose ears still can't hear. So what do you do with them?
You do.
Lovingly allow them to be where they are, because that's their business.
I like allow.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Through gentleness and love.
it's all one thing, right?
Yeah, I think you're right, Jim.
Is that like non-dual?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah.
like that. She always says I'm right. So yeah, kudos. Let's try and sneak in one more and maybe possibly finish this. Are we on forgiveness is unknown?
Yeah.
That's where we are.
All right, Joan, is that you?
Yes, okay. Forgiveness is unknown in heaven, where the need for it would be inconceivable. However, in this world, forgiveness is a necessary correction for all the mistakes that we have made. To offer forgiveness is the only way for us to have it, for it reflects the law of heaven that giving and receiving are the same. Heaven is the natural state of all the sons of God as He created them. Such is their reality forever. It has not changed because it has been forgotten.
Comments here? Well, let me do the last paragraph, and we can triumphantly say that after all these weeks, we made it through the preface, right? The very
Okay.
last paragraph. Forgiveness is the means by which we will remember. Through forgiveness, the thinking of the world is reversed. The forgiven world becomes the gate of heaven because by its mercy we can at last forgive ourselves. Holding no one prisoner to guilt, we become free. Acknowledging Christ in all our brothers, we recognize Christ's presence in ourselves. I'm sorry. Remember how Jesus, if you would be my disciple, follow me. Do what I do. That's how you become a disciple. So it reminded me of acknowledging Christ in all our brothers. That's the way we recognize it in ourselves. Forgetting all our misperceptions, and with nothing from the past to hold us back, we can remember God. Beyond this, learning cannot go. When we are ready, God Himself will take the final step to Him. And the final step, God's final step, might be a little thump like Yogananda got when he was ready. I'm working on it, okay? I'm just saying, Some people want to make $1 million. Some, I want to have this orgasm that never ends. We good tonight, my friends?
Great.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Good.
thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna let you go again. Just a reminder, send me some stuff, I mean, if you think of something, it's not like I don't have week after week after week, okay? So I thank you for coming tonight, and I'm trying to collect here, get my money, my smiley faces.
Mhm.
Yeah, Pat. Yeah, Pat. Now you're coming along. You all look beautiful. Hey, thank you for joining tonight, and thank you for being here. Okay.
Thank
Thank
you,
Thank you,
Jim.
Jim.
Have a good
Yeah.
week coming up. Love you.
Love you.
Love
Namaste.
you.
Namaste.
Namaste. Bye bye.